Charlie Chaplin walks down Methley Street in Kennington, kicking loose cobblestones while returning from another failed audition at a local music hall. In the gutter beside a flickering gas lamp, he spots an elegant walking stick with a curved handle, apparently dropped by some well-dressed gentleman. As Charlie picks up the carved wooden cane and feels its perfect weight in his hand, something clicks into place. The stick seems to whisper, "This is it, Charlie. This is your perfect match." What happens during the next 2 hours and 14 minutes of experimentation with this discarded prop doesn't just give birth to an iconic symbol. It reveals how the greatest artistic discoveries often emerge from chance encounters with ordinary objects that somehow unlock extraordinary creative possibilities. Methley Street, Kennington, South London, October 7, 1904, Friday evening, 6:45. The working-class neighborhood settles into its evening routine as gas lamps begin flickering on and families gather for modest dinners. Charlie, at 15, has spent the afternoon auditioning for a small role in a touring music hall production, only to be told once again that he lacks the presence and authority needed for professional performance. The walking stick lies beside the gutter, clearly expensive and well-crafted, with intricate carving on the handle and a polished finish that suggests quality craftsmanship. It's the kind of accessory carried by gentlemen of means, lawyers, doctors, businessmen who use such items to signal their social status and refined taste. Charlie has seen such walking sticks carried by the wealthy men who occasionally attend music hall performances, sitting in the better seats and observing working-class entertainment with amused condescension. To Charlie, these accessories represent everything he cannot access: education, refinement, social respect, and economic security. But something about this particular stick appeals to him beyond its symbolic value. The weight feels perfectly balanced in his hand, the length suits his height exactly, and the curved handle fits his grip as if custom-made for his proportions. "What are you doing with that fancy stick?" calls out Mrs. Williams from her doorway, watching Charlie examine his discovery. "I found it in the street, Mrs. Williams. Someone must have dropped it." "Well, you'd better return it to the police station. That's quality goods, that is. Someone will be looking for it." Charlie nods politely, but instead of heading toward the police station, he continues down the street, unconsciously twirling the stick as he walks. The motion feels natural, almost automatic, as if his hands know instinctively how to manipulate this object for maximum effect. As he passes a group of children playing in the street, Charlie begins experimenting with the stick more deliberately. He discovers that he can use it for balance while performing exaggerated walks, can twirl it dramatically for emphasis, and can even incorporate it into physical comedy routines. The children stop their game to watch as Charlie demonstrates how the stick can become a telescope, a fishing rod, a dancing partner, or a sword, depending on how he holds and manipulates it. Within minutes, he's developed half a dozen different ways to use the prop for comedic effect. "Do it again," shouts young Tommy Fletcher. "Do the one where you fight the invisible man." Charlie repeats his improvised sword-fighting routine, using the stick to parry imaginary attacks while performing elaborate dodges and dramatic responses to wounds that exist only in his imagination. The children laugh delightedly at his performance, and Charlie realizes that the stick somehow amplifies his natural comedic abilities. More importantly, he notices that carrying the walking stick changes how he moves and how others perceive him. With the prop in hand, he naturally adopts more refined postures and gestures. His walk becomes more dignified, his bearing more confident, his entire presence more theatrical. This transformation fascinates Charlie because it represents the opposite of what he expected. Instead of making him feel inadequate by comparison to its wealthy original owner, the stick somehow elevates his own performance and self-presentation. As evening approaches, Charlie finds himself in Kennington Park, where he continues experimenting with the prop under the gaslight. He discovers that the stick can serve multiple functions within a single routine, beginning as a gentleman's accessory, transforming into a tool or weapon, and concluding as a dance partner or musical instrument. But the real breakthrough comes when Charlie begins incorporating the stick into his signature style of physical comedy. He realizes that the prop provides an anchor point for elaborate physical routines, something solid and reliable that allows him to attempt more ambitious gestures and movements. "The stick gives me structure," Charlie mutters to himself as he practices a complicated routine involving the cane, a park bench, and an imaginary conversation with an invisible companion. More significantly, Charlie discovers that the walking stick helps him create and maintain a specific character persona. With the prop in hand, he naturally becomes more dignified, more refined, more gentlemanlike, but in ways that can be subverted for comedic effect. The character who emerges during his practice sessions isn't Charlie Chaplin, the struggling young performer. It's someone else entirely, a figure who possesses the external trappings of respectability but whose behavior reveals the absurdities and contradictions of social pretension. "This stick doesn't make me look like a gentleman," Charlie realizes. "It makes me look like someone pretending to be a gentleman. And that's much funnier." By 9 p.m., Charlie has developed what will become the foundation of his most famous character. The Little Tramp isn't just Charlie with a walking stick. It's a complete persona built around the tension between dignified appearance and undignified circumstances. The walking stick serves as the perfect symbol for this contradiction. It's elegant and refined, suggesting wealth and status, but it's wielded by someone whose clothing, behavior, and circumstances clearly indicate poverty and social displacement. Charlie understands intuitively that this contrast, between what the stick represents and who is carrying it, creates automatic comedy. The humor emerges from the gap between aspiration and reality, between how someone wants to be perceived and what their actual situation reveals. 3 weeks later, Charlie uses his walking stick routine in an audition for the same music hall company that had rejected him the previous month. This time, his performance receives enthusiastic approval from the director who had criticized his lack of presence and authority. "That's extraordinary, young man," the director tells Charlie after his audition. "The character you've created has genuine distinctiveness. There's something about the combination of refinement and desperation that's both funny and somehow touching." "Thank you, sir. It's all about the stick, really. It gives the character something to aspire to and something to lose." The director nods thoughtfully. "Yes, I see that. The prop becomes part of the psychology of the performance. Very sophisticated understanding for someone your age." Charlie gets the job, beginning a professional relationship that will lead to more substantial opportunities and eventual recognition as a unique comedic performer. But the real significance of his discovery extends beyond immediate career benefits. The walking stick teaches Charlie that great artistic symbols often emerge from unexpected sources, and that the most powerful props are those that embody contradictions rather than simple meanings. Years later, when Charlie becomes internationally famous and the Little Tramp's walking stick becomes one of cinema's most recognizable symbols, he often tells the story of finding it in a Kennington gutter. "That stick taught me that the best comic characters are built around internal contradictions," Charlie explains in a 1925 interview. The tramp carries a gentleman's walking stick because he refuses to abandon his dignity despite his circumstances. The prop represents hope, aspiration, and stubborn optimism in the face of obvious failure. "What made you realize the stick was special? It fit my hand perfectly from the moment I picked it up, as if it had been waiting for me. But more importantly, it immediately suggested a complete character, someone who maintains formal manners and refined gestures despite living in poverty." The stick became the key to understanding who this character was and why he behaved as he did. The walking stick that Charlie found that October evening remained with him throughout his career, appearing in dozens of films and becoming inseparable from his most famous character. When he eventually retired the Little Tramp persona, he kept the original stick as a reminder of how artistic breakthroughs often come from ordinary objects encountered at exactly the right moment. The 2 hours and 14 minutes Charlie spent experimenting with his discovered walking stick proved that sometimes the most important creative tools choose their artists rather than the reverse, and that the greatest symbols often reveal themselves through play rather than serious intention. Mrs. Williams never did find out what happened to the gentleman's walking stick that young Charlie promised to return to the police station, but she lived long enough to see it become one of the most famous props in entertainment history.